Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. I have 4 coincidental miracles to share with you today, but before I get into that, I'd like to lay a foundation of some things that'll help us appreciate the 4 coincidence miracles better. For example, those of us who spend time trying to talk to God every day about, all the things going on in our lives and trying to ask Him for directions, inspirations about what to do about things during our life, we come to learn many things because we're asking God questions and He's answering us and guiding us. So I want to share a couple of things with you before I get into the 4 specific coincidence miracles. For example, number 1, God decided in the Bible to make one day a week a holy day of obligation. So God told us, the 7th day is a holy day. And if you talk to Him about it for a while, a few times about it, you come to learn many things. For example, those of us who have pets, let's use a pet dog or a pet cat as an example. Let's take the dog because I can focus better there. You notice that often a dog will go somewhere else to sleep, go somewhere else to get peace, instead of to his customary place. He goes somewhere different, and we look at that and we wonder why he does that. Well, if you observe that and ask God about it, you'll come to see and learn, I'm sure, that that's because the dog has a built-in mechanism about serving his master, obeying his master, protecting his master. And you can see that in most dogs. Certainly those things are attributes of a dog. And the fact is that the dog is always keeping his eye on the master to watch and see what instructions he might be getting or what scoldings he might be getting. So now when a dog doesn't want to be scolded, doesn't want to be told to do other things, wants to be left alone, he goes somewhere else to sleep or to pack himself away because he doesn't want to be disturbed. Now God knows this because He's created dogs, but He also knows that we have a similar attribute as humans. Built into us is the automatic tendency to ask God for help. But like a dog, I know we're not dogs, but like a dog, we don't want to be bothered sometimes, so we don't look at God. We don't want to catch a glimpse of Him telling us to do something because we don't want to be bothered. And so that's why God has set up the 7th day to be a holy day, because otherwise we would get into the habit of being dogs that never look at the master, never ask Him what to do, and get pretty wild. And so God, knowing all of this, that's why he created the seventh day for us to worship him. So whether you have a religion or not, at least you should consider to spend at least one day a week focusing on God. I like to tell people, instead of focusing on one day, maybe focus on 10% of every day. Try to spend some time talking to God, asking him what to do during the day, and that'll add up to 10% of the day. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is several movements that are present on the planet Earth. Over the last 2,000 years, people have tried to understand God, and we've had 10,000 saints recorded, the lives of 10,000 saints that we know about. There may be millions of saints we don't know about, but we know about 10,000 of them, and you can Google their names and read their stories. And they've left historical notes for us, and so if we spend the time reading the stories of saints, we learn many, many things. So I want to share some things. There are some movements, some organizations that have learned a lot about things from the saints, and these organizations were formed to help the rest of us to get a condensed teachings of what saints, a whole saint's life might be telling us some things. And movements were organized to help the rest of us, be quick studies and learn what these saints might have spent a lifetime learning. We can learn on a weekend retreat. So I've attended several of these in my life over the last 54 years, and some of you may have attended some of them. So I just want to mention them so you know they exist. You can look into them if you want, but they're all different movements that help people find God in their life, and they help people to have the ability to talk to God and hear God's responses. So the first one is pretty well known. It's called Marriage Encounter. My wife and I went to that, and simply stated, it teaches you how to bring God into your marriage. And you have a marriage, but God created marriages. He started it. The first one was Adam and Eve. And so Marriage Encounter helps us to see how God structures a marriage and how to have a wonderful marriage if you follow the teachings that God has left with us and the many saints as well. The next movement is called Cursillo. It's pronounced Cursillo, and it's spelled Cursillo. And what it does is it teaches us how to become apostles, like Jesus had 12 apostles, and the saints have taught us and told us, there are certain things you can do that help to enhance this relationship with God, and you can, begin to live like one of the 12 apostles and be close to Christ, even though Christ is invisible. So Cursillo teaches that. Then there's the charismatic movement, also known as a Pentecostal one, but depending on what religion you're in, they call it Pentecostal in the Protestant religions. They call it charismatic in the Catholic religion. But so either one, Pentecostal or charismatic, teaches us how to discern spirits, how to understand the spiritual realm, insights, inspirations, ideas, many of the things we talk about here every week, noticing coincidence, miracles, etc. Really how to follow the promptings of God. And said another way that might be helpful, when the dog looks at the master, the dog can tell by the look, by the facial expression or the glance of the master, the dog can tell what the master wants. And it'll usually get up and approach the master and start whining or something like that, or start licking the master's hand. So charismatic Pentecostal movements, they teach us how to read the signals of God, the clues of God. And the next one is called ACTS, A-C-T-S, like Broadway actors. It's called ACTS, and it's very similar to Cursillo. It teaches you how to be a quasi-apostle of Jesus. Now, all these movements are for males and females, okay? So I mentioned them to you. If you want to look more into them, you can Google those titles, or you could email me for more information if you email me. I have personally attended all of these movements, and I've been part of them, participating in them, an average of 10 years per each movement, and each movement helps you to move on to the next one. So I've had 54 years exposure to these 4 or 5 different movements, and an average of 10 years in each one. And so that's what, one of the things I do is I try to discern what God wants me to do, and that's why I'm doing this radio program. I believe he wants me to do it, and I get many indications and evidence that he does. And the greatest thing I've learned in 54 years in all of these movements, and they all teach basically this similar thing, is if we keep talking to God, if we keep asking God what to do, and I don't preach religions, right? I just say, talk to God, ask him what to do, and he'll respond. He inspires you, and he gives you ideas in your mind and in your soul, and he'll teach you all of these things as well. So the keynote for me is tell everybody you can, ask God questions and talk to God, and that's the key answer to having a good life and being in a good relationship with God. Our first coincidence miracle today is one day I had finished reading a magazine that I guess took me about 6 months to read it. I read a page once in a while here and there. So I was about ready to toss it out, and I was inspired, no, don't toss it out. So, inspiration from God. So I kept it. I wondered why, but it was clear to me, hang on to it, I would need it again. And then I got ready for Mass, and as I was getting ready to go to church to Mass, I was inspired to go to a different church than the one I normally do to. So I stopped and thought, and I said a prayer, and I said, Lord, you really want me to go to this different church? And I was inspired, yes, go to the different church today. You won't be sorry. There's something special is going to happen there. Well, something very special indeed did happen, because when I got to Mass and the priest was giving his lecture, it turns out he gave a lecture that matched the magazine that I had just finished reading, which I was told to hang on to so I could go back home and check the facts and see how well it matched. And I did that. It matched the priest's lecture almost, verbatim. It was so amazing. And the other thing that happened also was in the priest's lecture, he told a story, and he told a story about somebody named Tony. And that's my name. So talk about a coincidence miracle. If I didn't go to this different church and I didn't keep the magazine, I wouldn't be appreciating these two coincidence miracles so far. The next coincidence miracle was a really blessed event, and that's why I told you about all the movements. I've been a member of the movements and organizations because I saw a family of 9 people, husband and wife and 7 children. And they came walking in like a straight line, and I got to see them one at a time coming through the doors. And I got to tell you, it was like seeing the 12 apostles coming in one at a time. You can imagine the 12 apostles, they were very holy people, or the Blessed Virgin Mary and Blessed Joseph. Imagine them walking into a room. And if you just try to imagine that, ask God to help you imagine that, you get a glimpse of what I was seeing. I saw 9 people walk in. They are very holy people. They're very religious. They are very involved in church activities. I know each one of them. I've taught a few of them in Sunday school. And I did tell the parents later how impressed I was seeing like the 12 apostles walking into a room. It was a really great blessing. And the next coincidence miracle was that before I left the house to go to Mass to this different church, I was inspired to take a handful of miraculous medals. From my prior talks, there are things called miraculous medals. You can Google them, and miraculous medals of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I was inspired to take a handful of them, and I did. And at the end of the Mass, there was a whole family of brothers and sisters, etc., of about 12 people, and I was able to hand them out to them because they had requested the Mass be said for their family and for one of the family members who had recently died. So every one of them got a medal because I brought them in because God inspired me to do so. So this was a wonderful coincidence miracle. God inspired me to bring the medals with me, these extra medals. I didn't know I was going to meet all these people. And as I was leaving, God said, those are the people you brought the medals in for. So I went over, and they were delighted all to get one because they know the significant meaning of these medals. God bless you all. I will talk to you again next week.